Hello, everyone. You are listening to another episode of the Colleague Down the Hall podcast. I'm your host, Janine Wolf, joined today by Mary Crutchfield. Mary is a clinical hypnotherapist, Go Within Hypno-breathwork practitioner, as well as a psychiatric and family nurse practitioner. I've known Mary for a while. She has been my go-to person for med management at times with clients, and we got to hang out recently at a conference, and so I'm so happy to have you on today, Mary.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. So today we're going to talk about the power of clinical hypnotherapy and hypno-breathwork for anyone wanting to change their lives. This is also a great primer, I think, for therapists or other providers who want to learn more about this modality. So it can be kind of an introduction to see, what this could be like working with clients as a different form of support and healing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so do you want me? I can talk about how I got into it and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's probably the most powerful part of my, the story is, I have a business that I was starting up, and I was like, I really want to help psychiatric nurse practitioners opening up their own practices. And then I get this message from this really amazing psychiatric NP. We just vibed like immediately. And she invited me to this retreat. So I show up at the retreat in North Carolina. I don't know anyone. I don't know what we're about to do. She just was like, I think you'll love it. And it was all inner child healing. It was all hypno breathwork, and it was all hypnotherapy for 3 straight days. It was called Heal the Healers. It was all for psychiatric professional psychiatrists mainly were there that had left traditional medicine and started doing this work. And my life changed forever. Everything changed about everything about me.
That's amazing. And those types of, I had that same experience when I went through the brain spotting training, phase 1 and phase 2. And it's like you tap into something you didn't even know was out there. And you're like, okay, I've experienced such an amazing experience myself, but I want to share this with everyone. So it sounds like you really developed a passion for it out of your own experience.
I did, because, historically, I'm a mental health provider. I'm in traditional Western medicine. I prescribe medications, evaluations, and all that through the traditional part of my practice. And then I meet this person who has the same credentials as me. However, the approach is completely different, right? It's like, we're going to completely regulate your nervous system. We're going to drop into the subconscious. I mean, things I had heard of with all these plant medicine and psilocybin and ketamine-assisted therapy, but without using all of that. So that was a new concept to me. And then after I tapped into it, I was almost shocked that we didn't learn more about it in our education and that people aren't talking about it more often. That's what I've realized too, coming out of it is wow. I wish more people could tap into it.
Yeah. And I think that our field in particular is really embracing more of these alternative healing modalities and looking at, there is a place for talk therapy, but there's also other ways to access very deep healing, and having options when working with clients of like, what is the thing that's going to be most supportive to them for today's session. Not even like this is the only thing I'm going to do with them necessarily. Although some clients I'm sure will come to you just for that, and that's all they want. And that's cool too.
Yeah, it's this connection of, for me, it was absolutely necessary. So some of the people in the retreat were even to the extreme of like, no more medication. We left traditional psychiatry and CBT and any form of therapy altogether. And this is all we do. I felt like for me, even as a practitioner, the medications were necessary to bring me to the point where I could tolerate learning everything and addressing trauma and healing everything about myself. And so there's like a range, like you said, like sometimes you might need this, and it's not for everyone all the time. But when you are ready to access that side, and for the people that are ready to dive in, it's life-changing for almost everyone that I've met that isn't just like, let me kind of see what it feels like and oh, that's what it is, but more like, I want to do that. I want to access that part of myself. I want to see that part of myself, and I want to move through it. And that's what gets me so excited about it, because I was able to come off all psychiatric medications. I was able to like kind of transition all my healing modalities to more interventional things like using sound, using dance, using art, start, using all of the things that we love as humans instead of talking and using the thinking mind so much. It was using the part of the brain that I guess was kind of like dormant for so long.
And I think it's important as practitioners to be open to exploring these other options for alternative healing. And I was at a conference a couple years ago in Costa Rica, and I had my first ever sound bath, and it was like so amazing. And then I had an archetype reading, which also was like so amazing. And a lot of people are going to be like, I don't buy into that woo stuff, but I think you have to really be open-minded and try some of these things to understand that there can be really deep work that can take place with these other things, and that let's embrace these things.
Well, I just got off a call earlier this morning with a vibrational sound healer. So similar to you, my first experience with sound was so radical. So at that same retreat, there's a 17-year-old. She has one drum and she has one little bowl that makes some noise. I have no idea what to expect. We go in, we lay down. It's after all the shaking up of the emotions and releasing all sorts of things. And she does this just beating the drum and just, playing. And it blew my mind. I don't think I had ever felt so regulated in my nervous system before. So I reached out to this vibrational sound healer. I just wanted to pick her brain, right? And I was like, what do you mean when you say you want to change frequency? Because that's the stuff that sounds woo, right? Like that's the stuff that sounds like, what are you talking about? And she's like, Mary, think about it like this. Let's say I was born in New Jersey. Let's say you're born somewhere and you're born with certain beliefs and this is your religion and what you believe about the world. That's kind of your frequency. She's like, just call it that, your frequency. And then as you start to wake up to different things, right? Like, okay, well, maybe I really do love dancing and art. That's a different frequency. And she's like, so when we use that word, it often gets misinterpreted, but you can actually open up more about yourself by using different sounds, right? Even just like if you used your voice to make different pitches, you're opening up your frequency. And so that made more sense, because even I hear some of the language sometimes that's different from medical language, and I'm like, what does that mean?
Right. Yeah. And so this journey has really opened you up to exploring lots of other things. And I just really love that, because I've been sort of on a similar path myself. So let's talk about the many misconceptions of hypnosis and misunderstandings about what it means.
So a lot of people have been exposed to entertainment hypnosis, either with like children or on a cruise. I'd say cruise ships are probably like the most common places to see it, right? And it's like, we're going to count down and we're going to, you're going to keep your eyes open or close your eyes. I'm going to tell you what to do. So hypnosis itself is focused attention, right? We're going to focus our attention. And so there's a lot of misconceptions that it's going to be this very strange experience where you have some mind control. And I think I even thought that. I didn't know going into this hypnotherapy thing what it was. It's a place where you are easily suggested things. So, hey, when you smoke that cigarette, you're going to feel your lungs fill up. You're going to feel sick to your stomach. And so it's suggesting to the subconscious, like, hey, I'm not going to want to do these things, right? Connecting those things. So a lot of the misconception is just that it's very strange and it's mind control. What it actually is this way of getting into a mind state kind of before you go to sleep or wake up, or like if you're driving in your car and it's not the very first time you've driven and you're just looking in your rearview mirror, you're not even consciously thinking about it, you're just floating along kind of like daydreaming. It's being in that state where your thinking mind is turned off. So it's not what if this, what if that, what if this, what if that. It's just calm and quiet, and it's allowing you to access your body in that state and access the emotions that we house in our body. Which is so beautiful, because I'm a big thinker. I don't know about you, but like I think all the time about a million things. And so the first time I did it, I was like, that was insane. That was an out-of-body experience in my body.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it's just making me wonder, how open to this does I presume people have to be open to wanting to try this for it to work. Are there people who can't do this, or is it resistance that will cause people to have an inability to be hypnotized?
So I have this theory, and it's kind of like based on Carl Jung, right? He says you're born with your physical body, then your ego is born, right? I should do this, I should be like this, I need to protect myself, I need to survive, and then you have your spiritual awakening. You have that part of your spiritual awakening in life. I feel like the people that are really open to it, they're in that phase in life where they're ready to look at themselves for all that you are, everything that's made you, and you're ready to kind of separate who you've been told to be, who you've been programmed to be, whether it's religion or mom or whatever that is, and you're ready to face that. And not everybody is ready because they might still be in survival, or they might still have wanting to protect, a lot of fear, a lot of the ego is still there. The people that are super resistant, I feel like those are the people that tend to do the ketamine therapy. I could be wrong, but if you can't do it gently without medication assistance, then I have had some people that I refer to use medication to help them drop past the resistance. But we even explore resistance. Let's say someone comes in and they say, I don't like this feeling. It's uncomfortable. We go into that. Where's this resistance from? I'm afraid. What happens if you're afraid? I might get hurt. And trying to show people like, we're safe here right now. And let's learn to calm your nervous system right here, right now.
And I think it has to feel very vulnerable for people to think I'm just opening myself up to, I don't really know what's going to happen and I'm just going to have to go with it, right?
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah, it is scary. Absolutely. I was having a conversation with a colleague about that with brain spotting, that, it's like your brain is taking over and doing the work, and, your body is doing all this stuff and you don't know what you're going to end up with. And that vulnerability can be intimidating. But I think probably like what I've experienced with clients who I've introduced brain spotting to, they're like, oh yeah, I'm sold now. I want to do more of this. I suspect that you get that same type of response.
I mean, that's where the liberation is, right?
Yeah.
It's facing the fear, facing the resistance, not continuing to resist, going into it, actually not fighting against it. And then specifically in the type of work that I do with like a mix of the hypnotherapy and the breath work together, we use physical movement as we're emoting, as we're crying, as we're speaking, as we're singing, whatever it is to help the body calm. We're emoting at the same time that we're doing that. We are releasing. So that voice that says, protect and be small and be afraid and don't take up space and this isn't safe, we're acting the opposite. We are liberating ourselves. So some of the most powerful things in the retreats that I've gone to and the training that I've done, it literally has been screaming at the top of my lungs, crying in front of a group and just releasing all of that pain and letting it be witnessed that, that younger part of me that didn't get a chance to do that. It's incredibly vulnerable work though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I imagine in a group setting, you're not the only one who is crying and all of that. The people around you are experiencing that as well.
Right. It's that concept of frequency, right? Going back to that work. I just remember in one of the groups, everybody was feeling heavy. We were processing the emotion of shame together and we're all laying down. Our eyes are closed. We're listening to music, like I'm not enough. I don't know anything. I don't know how to function in this world. Is this the right way to do it? And one of us made a noise. Just one. And then all of a sudden, everyone in the room is like, yes, I'm mad that I feel that way too, right? And so at some point we're all yelling and then we're laughing and then we're crying. And then, it's like this group experience of like being human, and it's really beautiful. So the whole frequency of the group changes. I love group work.
So is that typically how this modality is used with groups, or do you do it one-on-one as well?
Hypnotherapy, most of the time it's done one-on-one. So I was trained at the Wellness Institute that's called Heart-Centered Hypnotherapy. It's individual one-on-one work, and you do age regressions during the work, you to see those parts of yourself, kind of like parts work. But then when I did the training with Liz Burkholder for the Go Within Hypno-breathwork, she's modeling this new variation that includes a lot of movement release and breath work with the hypnosis, the hypnotherapy. And that's what I've been doing in my group settings. In group settings, you're not disclosing. There's no self-disclosure. You're not talking about everything going on with you. You're just in the experience together. And it's a little bit different in each setting.
Okay. And then with individual, you are talking, or is it still the same kind of thing? It's just that you're one-on-one with the practitioner.
So one-on-one, and it's a conversation back and forth. We get into that relaxed state, specifically like the theta brainwave state, which is in between sleep and awake, just very calm, very relaxed, thinking mind is shut off. And I'm walking someone through, but I'm asking them questions, and we're getting down and deeper and helping them dig deeper until they can get to the part that needs to be seen.
And the question that we hate when clients ask us, but I'm going to ask you anyway, is there a typical length of treatment that you see like the results? And I know that there's so much variability when clients are like, how long am I going to have to see you? there's a lot involved in answering that question.
I mean, in the medical side of things, right? If it's like a medication or a specific type of therapy that says, okay, we're going to do this many sessions in this protocol, I would have a better answer. But in this type of work, when people leave my office, if this worked for you, if you left feeling that a different part of your brain is activated, that you felt relaxed for the first time, that you shut off that thinking mind, you will come back when you know what it is that you want to see and process again. And sometimes it's in 2 weeks. And sometimes I've had people call me 3 months later and say, okay, I didn't know what we were doing in the first session, but now I know, for example, I have significant issues with money and scarcity, and I need to get to the bottom of that. We'll process that. Right. Mm-hmm. And so it's really actually more client based of I need to go deep again or I don't. Right.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And then just a practical question for people who are insurance based. Is this something that insurance covers?
I know there is a billing code for hypnotherapy. I don't know what the reimbursement rates are for it.
Yeah.
Essentially, though, you could code as therapy, just like a traditional therapy. You are essentially accessing resource states. You are processing, some childhood related issues, emotions, and you are rewriting core beliefs. Now, whether you mentioned that you did it in a relaxed state or not, we use all these words, right? But essentially when people ask me what I do, I'm like, you relax. It feels like meditation. But then what we do is some really deep trauma work.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I imagine that part of your marketing has to be education first. Like what does this truly mean? Do a lot of people reach out and they're like, I don't really understand, but somebody recommended this might be a good thing for me to do? Or what has been your experience with new people coming to you?
So it's a struggle. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's like, what are you doing? So my current patients, I didn't even send anything out to them saying, hey, I'm doing this new thing. I basically just said, my schedule is changing to accommodate something that I'm really passionate about. For the people that reached out, that was awesome, right? Because they were like, I trust you. I've been seeing you for 6 years. I'll do anything you tell, let's do it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
For the people that are coming just from out of the public, it's been word of mouth. So, hey, I experienced this transformation. I think because you're going through X, Y, and Z, you should try it. Or from doing the group work, people saying, oh, I loved the group work. Can I do it one-on-one with you as well and see what that feels like, where I can be more vulnerable and process a specific issue with you?
Okay.
But I was talking to somebody yesterday, just putting ideas, like how can we help people understand? So this is what we came up with. Just going around to people, family and friends and saying, what do you think it is? And letting them give their answer. And then, kind of like doing a snapshot of it. It's funny what people say. Like most of it, it's pretty wild. And then like actually saying, okay, this is what it's actually like,
Right. Yeah.
The common thread is so weird.
Yeah, you're gathering data there so you can be more effective at your marketing.
Yeah.
That's a part of this work for most of us that we're just like, I just want the people to come and let me do the work. But you have to put a lot of effort into marketing at times, especially when you're doing something that's different than what people are used to.
You know what, though? I feel like people are really ready. I don't know if it's post-COVID. I don't know if it's just because of like social media showing all different forms of healing. But I have found that I thought people would be more resistant. And as I open up to clients, they're opening up to me to tell me all sorts of things like, oh, I'm actually a pet psychic. And I was like, I never would have known that, that you do that like for fun on the side. Or, hey, I'm super into sound healing. Like I just never brought it up with you because I thought you weren't into it. And so I'm learning like these layers of spirituality that people practice and are a part of that I didn't know before as their provider.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I think that there's still a lot of shame or embarrassment around some of these things because it's not widely accepted by society. And so people are hesitant about sharing it because of the reactions that they might get.
What do you think the shame is from? I'm trying to understand that piece. I'm trying to wrap my mind around.
The shame that maybe they're not meeting societal expectations. I didn't think you were the type of person that would do that. And you get that remark a number of times, and then you feel ashamed that people are going to see you differently or judge you. Maybe shame isn't the right word, but that reaction of, okay, I talked about this, it didn't go well, so now this is part of like my innerness that I'm not going to share with anyone else. This is just private for me. Unless I know you're safe, then it's okay.
Yeah, and there's this whole, I have met some of the most amazing people along this journey that are like kind of owning, they're authentic about it. They're owning like, this is my journey, good or bad, right or wrong. Like, this is where I'm at on my journey. And God, the transformation is just so visible too with the people that do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost feels frustrating to go around groups that aren't doing the work and then just have the resistance be so strong and be like, you don't know what you're missing out on. But I'm working on that, where like, that's not my job, right? I'm here to just, when you that whole Ram Dass quote, we're just walking each other home, right? We're just holding hands, walking each other home. Like, I'm just like everyone else.
Yeah. Have you had any reactions from clients where they're, and obviously, like, those of us who've had long-term clients, they are absolutely like, I completely trust you. Yeah. Whatever you say, we're going to give it a try. But maybe newer clients that you've been working with that were just like, I'm really surprised to learn that you do that. Have you had that reaction at all?
Not really.
Okay.
I have had a few people say, well, this is pretty common for my whole life, right? I'm 4'11". I'm short. Oh, I didn't know how short you were. I didn't know how young you are. Are you old enough to do that? I got that for a long time. And now it's like, oh, you're really casual. And I expected to come in here and kind of be diagnosed clinically and kind of this stuffy, like real rigid thing. And it doesn't happen. And then when I start talking about all this stuff, they're like, I did not expect that. But it's usually really positive. I'm so glad I came to you and I didn't go to X, Y, and Z that took my insurance, because it would have been like that,
Right. And I think that's an amazing evolution in our field, is that we are beginning to understand that consumers are more savvy now, and they have these defined ideas of what a therapist or a mental health provider is going to be and what that's going to look like, what it's going to feel like. And then when they see someone's website where they've got like pink hair and tattoos and they're like, that's my person. Like, yeah, I don't want to sit there with the lady in the cardigan. I want this person who seems relatable to me. And so I think it's an amazing evolution. And I'm seeing more and more of that with the therapists that I come in contact with.
Right. Just even because when you see a provider that knows themselves really well, then it's so reassuring that you're going to have a better experience, right? And we can only help our clients to the frequency, to the level that we've healed. And what I realized is, before I did all of this work last year and did all the training for it, I had healed quite a bit, and I had done the traditional, psychotherapy for years and medication management. But there was a part of me that I hadn't accessed. And now that I've accessed it, I can help others access it. And it's really beautiful. And I think that people are looking for that, and they're going to find the right person, right?
Yeah, right.
Like,
right.
It just happened. Like, I don't even know how I met my mentor. It was online. It was an exchange of, your whole thing is just whatever words you want to use, your aura, your vibe, your frequency. It's just so radiant. And I can tell that you are just, like, it's changed her life. Mm-hmm. And I want that too.
Yeah. And obviously it was a podcast, so people aren't seeing you, but you light up when you talk about this. And I got to experience a little bit of this at the conference that we were at, when you did a session for those of us that were willing to get up early enough. And I have to say, I'm not an early bird, so it was a big effort for me to get there. But
that was early. When she said 7, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to haul all that equipment.
Yeah. But I think that makes such a big difference too, when you've done the work, what's possible, and the passion is there. People pick up on that, and they're like, I want what she's got.
That's actually, one of the questions you asked earlier, marketing wise, how people make it to me. Interestingly, a lot of people have followed me on Facebook, my personal account, which is public, and I think have noticed the shift. I mean, at least that's a lot of the feedback I got. Is I've seen you like for years, just kind of like, oh, you're doing this, you're doing that. And then they're like, all of a sudden, you're just not even the same person. And I don't think that when I'm posting, you know what I mean? I'm not thinking about it as I'm like explaining what I'm going through. I'm just like, like, oh yeah, you're right. And it's a really good reflection of how I was very that whole statement, like the dark night of the soul, right? I was definitely going through a time period where I don't even know if I want to work in mental health anymore. I don't know if I want to even work with people or any of it, right? Like I'm kind of depressed, I'm kind of shut down, I'm burnt out. And then I realized that wasn't the case at all. I was just on that journey to find myself.
And I think you've tapped into something that's really important for providers is that, especially since the pandemic, I mean, we're already in a high burnout field just because of the nature of what we do. And the thing I like to remind people of is we are humans who happen to do this work. And people expect us to be this provider who acts a certain way and puts everything about themselves behind them. And we just can't function that way anymore in the world we're in. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to put our own needs into the equation. And so what I'm finding is that when providers are opening themselves up to learn a new modality or experience something different, the energy that they're getting, even if they were at the point like you were, I'm not sure I can keep doing this work. Because I talk about sustainability in this field all the time. We have to do this work sustainably, or we're not going to be able to continue doing it. We're going to be too burnout at some point, or too annoyed, or too frustrated, with all those things. And so the passion that you can get from learning something new is, in my opinion, from my own experience, like one of the most energizing things you can do in this field if you've hit a rut and you're really like questioning, like, where am I going next? Can I keep doing this? Learn something new. Right?
Yeah. We have to get a certain amount of continuing education credits as psychiatric nurse practitioners. The majority of it, though, is focused on medication management. And we are so heavily, I don't know, it's like indoctrinated into prescribe meds. So to branch out in therapy is a little bit controversial for us, right? And then on top of it, to say, okay, I'm going to go and do this variation of therapy that is a combination of two things. It's life-changing, and at the same time, it's a little bit nerve-wracking, right? It is a little bit nerve-wracking at the same time. But yeah, to make our job sustainable, I feel like we need to have those life-changing experiences, even if they're hard or it's controversial.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the continuing ed thing is interesting too, because when I was in grad school in the 90s, so the early 90s, my training was very different than newer therapists that are coming up, newer providers. But I was of the mind that when I went into private practice, continuing ed is stuff that I have to do to check a box. And so I would look for a free training or something that seemed really convenient. And I didn't understand that you can really harness the power of budgeting for the continuing education, and then using that as a path to continue learning, but also personal and professional growth. Like, we're not just checking the box. We can do that. But if you really want to grow and help your clients better and differently, then we need to budget for that, plan for that, be excited about it. Yay, I get to do my continuing eds and with this course, and it's going to be so wonderful.
Kind of that whole cost of staying where you are is more than the cost of moving forward. And it was expensive, for a continuing education that I did, that there wasn't a specific certifying body behind it where I can, use it for the nursing board. And right. I paid for it anyway, but it was, out of everything I've ever done in my life that had to do with mental health, and I've paid out of pocket for cash pay providers and psychologists and psychiatrists, I would do it. If she charged 3 times more, I would still do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's wonderful. And I actually kind of like programs that don't have this specific path to certification. I feel like it's become this money grab that people want to learn these different modalities, but in order to actually use it, you have to take 5 different levels over the course of 3 years and spend thousands of dollars on the training and then the consultation and supervision. And it's not accessible to a lot of people. And so being able to say, okay, I want to try this out. I'm going to do level 1. And then with brain spotting, like, when we finished level 1 training, they're like, you are a brain spotting practitioner. You can start using this right now. And I was like, I love that so much, because other modalities are like, nope, you've dipped your toe in it and that's great, but you can't use this yet.
Right. Exactly. I've seen that and I feel bad. I have a relationship with a therapist down in the Outer Banks. So it's like 4 hours away from where I am. And there's no providers down there. So she sends people up to me. And, one of our exchanges was just, we're in service, we're somewhat in spiritual work, right? We're somewhat in just like human work. And I'm just concerned about like costs rising over time for your services. I want people to be able to access them. So I've felt that pull too of like, how do we stay authentic in what we're offering? We've spent all of this money, we've received all this treatment for ourselves, we want to offer it, but we also have to like keep in mind that not everybody has access to all of this.
Yeah. And you've also kind of tapped into the money shame that I think when we are training in mental health, we're sort of taught, at least for, the level, the master's level therapist, and probably some psychologists as well, that you're not in this for the money, you're in this to make a difference. And so how dare you want to charge XYZ rate, or, why aren't you taking insurance, and all of those judgy things. But I mean, the bottom line is we're providing amazing services to people, and we do need to have income to pay the mortgage and set aside money for retirement and all the other things. That's something that I see shifting a little bit in our field, the money shame, but maybe it's just the pockets of people that I'm in that I'm seeing that.
Well, we did a session in our training specifically about money and the exchange of money and, kind of what we're trained as service workers, providers, to feel about money and what we're worth and everything. And it was really helpful because it is just a form of an energy exchange with someone. They're saying, I want you to do the service for me. This is what I believe it is worth it for me. And we really have to sit with what are we comfortable receiving instead of the strategic planning being the main driving force the whole time. Sometimes it's not that. It's just what am I comfortable receiving for everything I've put into it and all of the work that it takes in those sessions. What am I comfortable? And I've kind of come to my comfort level. And then what I also tried to do was my individual work is about the same cost as my group work, but my group work is 4 hours. So you can, you can come and get 3 or 4 hours of healing work in a group, get exposure, or you can do individual work for the same cost. And so, some people opt for the groups because it's more affordable and it's more for the same cost,
Yeah, there's so many ways we can make these services accessible. And for people who, need to use their insurance, there's plenty of providers out there for that as well. It only takes one client saying, you're only in this for the money, for people to go reeling and, then to have to do the work again. It's like, well, yeah, you do your job for the money too, right? Like you enjoy your job and you picked your job, but you also need an income.
Yeah. And after doing so much of the hypnotherapy, and then you're more aware of the subconscious and how other people's subconscious works. Now, when people start saying things to me like, you shouldn't be doing this, you're not a licensed clinical social worker therapist, or how can you charge that much money? Usually my question in my mind is, what part of them is feeling that way? That's not connecting with me? And like, why do we have that disconnection there? Because I'm standing in my like authentic truth and they're not comfortable with that. So how do we bridge that? And sometimes it's just, okay, that's not my referral source. That's not my person. That's not my population. And other times I'm like, I need to dig into that, especially if it's a friend, right? Like I did have a couple nurse practitioner colleagues just not okay with anything I'm doing. This is just, all these patients with schizophrenia, they're going to be, in jail or dead because you're not willing to, seriously consider their medical needs. And I'm like, when did I say that?
Right.
Of course they need medication. Of course they need support services. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Not trying to do their therapy with the world, with everybody.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I've had some similar experiences as well. And, once you start doing the work around that, then it's harder for people to get under your skin with it. Because I just am able to reflect back to, why is this causing this reaction for you? Because this is not something that's coming from me. This is purely internal for you.
Yeah. And I think at least for me, after every session, processing a different topic, like in the training, I really learned the importance of like writing down those things that pop up. So I can be like, oh, for this session, for some reason, I had this automatic terrible thought and I need to know where that's coming from because I'm tired of hearing that in my mind. Right.
Yes, absolutely. So are there any other things you wanted to be sure to share with this conversation today?
I think one of the main things that I really want people to understand about this type of work is it is different. It is a little bit nerve-wracking. It is very vulnerable, but it is more powerful and more healing than most of the healing that I've tried. And there's things that I haven't tried, like brain spotting. I'd love to try that. But this is the most powerful form because it accesses your body in a world where we're taught to, think things through and talk our way through things. And we're also in a medical world where we're told that. So for anybody that, is open to doing this type of work, just know that you're going to be accessing the body and dance and music and release and sound and all of the things and be freed. And I truly believe that we can heal almost anything. There are some conditions where our brains are just not wired to where we will be stable without medication, but there are so many things that we can heal that we're told as a society that we cannot, or that this is going to be chronic and forever. And I have found through this type of work that we can absolutely, our bodies know how to heal us.
Yes. That's one of the premises of brain spotting as well. Yes, we know how to heal ourselves if we can access the right ways to tap into that healing. And I think it's also important that people understand that, like for myself, I still have other ways that I work with clients. I do still refer clients for medications if that's an appropriate thing for them, or at least an evaluation. And so people don't have to choose. They don't have to say, oh, yeah, if I'm going to work with Mary, then I can't do these other things that I think might be supportive. Like, you have the skill and experience to be able to really customize the treatment to the person sitting in front of you, right? And people need to trust that we're not like just on this woo bandwagon where like nothing, what's considered normal in our field, that all that's out the window. That's not what most of us, I think, are trying to do here.
So I have two things to say about that. One is absolutely, I think, when I opened my practice, before I added any of these alternative treatments, I was so specific about who I referred out to and for what. It wasn't like, oh, go find a therapist on a website and hopefully it works out. It was personality, age, what's the topic, what's the modality. It was always like that for me. And I think that was really appreciated both by the therapist receiving my referrals as well as the ones that were sent to me. Because I'm like, you know what? She's a trauma therapist that referred to me. She's got that piece. So I'm going to do the medication piece and I'm going to leave that over there. Right. And so absolutely looking at the person as a whole person and what they're ready for and what they're willing and wanting to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
I got the second part.
Okay. That's something that, we get so caught up in. Therapists love to say research-based, evidence-based modalities and all that kind of stuff. And, what we know to be true and have known for a long time, that the relationship is the strongest factor of healing, of, the success of therapy. Like, you have to be able to have that great relationship, that connection between the therapist and the client. And once we kind of remember that, then it's easier to be open to trying some things that are newer. So you don't have decades of evidence-based trials and studies and all that kind of stuff. But that doesn't mean it's not valid and it's not really helpful.
Yeah, my feeling was after learning this, and I said earlier, I was just shocked that we weren't taught some of this in school. And then it had me asking those questions like, well, is this evidence-based and are there peer-reviewed literature and all of that? And then, it brought me back to that concept of this is all a journey, and what works for one person might not work for another. And for a while, I even personally saw a life coach for years. And looking back, the main thing that person did for me was validate me. And I needed that. That at the age I was, and the relationship was more important. And when I started to question as a new psychiatric nurse practitioner, can I even handle this person's story? He was like, absolutely. You are their person, Mary. Mm-hmm. Like, there is no one you. And so yeah, it is that whole, even with interns that I have, just letting them know, you don't have to have all the answers. We're just
right.
Yeah, we're their person,
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, this has been such a great conversation. I've loved learning more about this. And before I move on to kind of wrapping things up, if you could share with us if you have a favorite catchphrase or analogy that you like to use with your client.
Yes, I thought about this one. So imagining that you're in a cave. Okay. You're in a cave and there is a guide that's coming in with a flashlight. Right. And this is the person that is helping you open. Okay. And you're in this cave and all you know is the cave. You know the thoughts in the cave. You know what it looks like, what it feels like, and it doesn't feel comfortable and it's shut down. And then you follow the guide's light. You step out of the cave and then all of a sudden you're in this massive, overgrown, chaotic garden wilderness. And you're trying to weed through everything. And at first, it's terrifying because you're seeing all of the things that you're not sure what to do with them. And it feels big and it feels huge. And then you go through the process, right, of the hypnotherapy, the hypno-breathwork, shedding layers, releasing, finding, discovering, regulating. And then you end up in this absolutely beautiful, wonderful place and you're completely free. And you didn't know that you could be there.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
That's what it felt like for me.
Yeah, that's just such a lovely visual of what that can be like. That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so will you let the listeners know where they can access this work with you or other ways if they want to follow you on social media and things like that? Where can people find you?
Sure. So it's just the group events. If it's the group events, it's Ignite Your Spark. That's the name of the actual group event page. So it's igniteyourspark.club, not .com, but .club. And then my personal Facebook, honestly, is public. So it's Mary Crutchfield, right? Okay. My name. And, just following that, I usually post my group events. I post, revolutionary experiences that I have, basically my journey. And those are the best ways to find us. Now, if it's more of like a med management / like evaluation for hypnotherapy, my practice for traditional, where I've added in some somatic work there too, is Leva Psychiatry. Okay. That's LEVA.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much. And we'll put those things in the show notes as well. All right. So for all of you out there listening, I hope you will remember that our work is hard, but it doesn't have to be lonely.